Welcome to the Daily Boogie.
Jake, thanks for joining us. Just in time for
The Weekly Stelter.
Trump
See what Brian's got for us this week.
At Mar-a-Lago with one of his chief defenders, Fox News host Sean Hannity, this weekend. Hannity, of course, has been a loyal attack dog in the battle against Robert Mueller and the FBI. For months and months, almost for a year at this point, Hannity has been waging a war on Mueller and the FBI.
Take a look.
We have been sounding this alarm about the deep state.
Deep state.
Deep state.
Deep state.
Deep state.
Deep state.
The Mueller investigation is illegitimate and corrupt.
Corrupt. What do we need to get the wheels of justice really churning here? Because I know I'm fed up and my audience is fed up.
What is the...
I love Stelter. Philly, thanks for joining us. Philly doesn't expect to be greeted by Eskimo at a Chinese restaurant. Maybe not in China, Philly. In Canada, you probably will be treated by an Eskimo at a Chinese restaurant, mate. Please do try to understand how diversity plus geographical location equals different outcomes. But anyway, not to worry. Yes, deep state, corruption. Sean Hannity's war on the Mueller probe. For 12 months, ladies and gentlemen, Sean Hannity has been waging a one-man battle against the Robert Mueller probe to prove that it's all garbage, and in a very parallel universe, a parallel way, Brian Stelter has also been waging a war on Sean Hannity to explain that the Mueller probe is fully functional. We know everything, such as, for instance, last week, Robert Mueller was asking questions about Jared Kushner. The week before that, he was asking questions about Trump's business dealings 25 years ago. There was an indictment, Paul Manafort, before the election was even run. And that's big news. There was also about 13 Russians who ran a catering company and had some social media accounts, from what I can gather, who also posted pro-Hillary stuff. I mean, we've got a lot of dirt. Robert Mueller has done a lot of digging. He looks like a used car salesman here, doesn't he? And you won't find a better deal than at Brian's Bangers. Brian's Buicks.
fallout? What is the damage from that constant stream of criticisms and attacks? Let me ask my next guest, Josh Campbell. He's a former FBI special agent, now a CNN law enforcement analyst. Josh, you posted a tweet this week that caught my...
See, the constant attacks on the FBI, we've been over this. This is the thing with Brian Stelter. This is what he's always going to do. See, understand, ladies and gentlemen, when you point out individuals within the FBI ranks, such as Andrew McCabe, James Comey, Peter Strzok, if you point them out as individuals working within the entity of the FBI and perhaps suggest that they may or may not have been involved in some kind of unethical behavior, you are now attacking the whole of the FBI. Every single FBI agent who's ever worn a badge is now insulted. How dare you impugn the FBI? You are tearing democracy apart at the seams. Sean Hannity. These constant attacks on the FBI. What is this doing to our democracy? Let's get a former FBI agent in. See, he looks like an FBI agent to me.
my eye, saying that Hannity's attacks, the complaints from Fox, they are warping people's minds. How do you see this playing out?
The attacks on the FBI are warping people's minds. Again, by pointing out the likes of Andrew McCabe, who was fired by the FBI. Don't forget about that. Let's not mention that. This is reliable sources. Not one of those right-wing conspiracy shows. Here on Reliable Sources, we only tell you what you need to know. Only what you need to know. Slow and Hold says, Trump has said the FBI is an embarrassment. That's his tweet. Yes, but if you were paying attention, Brian Stelter's talking about Sean Hannity's attacks on the FBI, where Sean Hannity was talking about individuals such as Peter Strzok, Andrew McCabe, and James Comey. Let's not get our wires crossed. Thanks for joining us.
FBI special agent, now a
Warping
CNN
our
law
minds,
enforcement analyst.
manipulating your mind. The Andrew McCabe, he wasn't fired. He was unfairly oppressed, I'm sure. He was a scapegoat. And it was Donald Trump's tweets, although having nothing actually functionally to do with the firing of Andrew McCabe, I'm sure he's to blame somehow. Because once upon a time, he tweeted that the FBI is a bit of a joke right now. And that's a damaging attack. That's tearing democracy apart at the seams. I mean, he's a dictator, clearly.
Josh, you posted a tweet this week that caught my eye, saying that Hannity's attacks, the complaints from Fox, they are warping people's minds. How do you see this playing out?
Hey, Brian, great to be with you. I think if you look at recent events, I think it shows that we are slipping as a society because of some in the news. And when I talk about Fox, I just want to say at the outset that there are a lot of good, hardworking journalists over at Fox. My focus here is on the primetime lineup that often tries to, masquerade itself as news when in fact it's really entertainment. You look at the last year and what has now become fair.
I'm getting crushed with boulders of irony. I mean, look at the primetime lineup. Their opinion masquerading as news. Coming up after Reliable Sources. Anderson Cooper, ladies and gentlemen.
Fair game for these attacks. First it was the FBI, then it was our institutions of justice, and now even high school kids are becoming the victims of, people on media who say, okay, we're throwing everything, all caution to the wind, and now we're setting our sights on them. So it shows kind of that slippage. And if you look at these attacks, Brian, kind of throughout, there's one...
Again, see, there is nothing that anybody in the FBI did or did not do. All of these attacks have just been dreamt up in the minds of the right-wing conspiracists such as Sean Hannity. The text conversations, the unethical behavior, the lying under oath, that didn't happen. Fox News is warping your mind into thinking that there were troubles at the top of the FBI that have come to light in the last couple of years. In reality, everything is running smoothly, everything is just as it is, and the FBI are just innocent victims of vicious, vitriolic attacks from conspiracy theorists and right-wing extremists and bigots. And since we associated them, they're just like the high school kids that are getting attacked. Those victims of shootings. Here at the FBI, we're getting treated just like, children who survive school shootings. It's the same ballpark. It's the same ballpark.
Common theme, and that is you don't see an intelligent debate on ideas. You see attacks on people and on institutions. So we don't have an intelligent debate refuting Russian collusion.
We don't see an intelligent debate refuting Russian collusion. We just see attacks on people. That's why all of those awful people in the Fox News primetime lineup are just attacking people at will for no reason. All those grubs at Fox News, the scum, anti-American, insulting, name-calling scum over at Fox News. There's no intelligent debate with that sort of character. Evil.
we get attacks on the FBI and on Bob Mueller. We don't get a really serious gun control debate from folks like Laura Ingraham. We get attacks on kids.
This is something that occurred to me today, just while I was driving around and I was thinking about things. Why is it called the gun control debate? Any of you ever consider that? See, the outcome of the debate is inherent in the name of the debate. They unironically call it the gun control debate because the desired outcome is gun control. Restrictions, changing the laws. See, if you don't believe in gun control, then you're not even part of the debate. You're on the fringe. You're a crazy, dangerous person. Hey, whoa. NRA, what are you doing here? You can't be part of this discussion. This debate is about gun control. You're not interested in gun control. Why are you part of the debate? You shouldn't be. You're a whack job. You're outside the debate. You're outside the acceptable lines of the debate. So you shouldn't be heard. You should be deplatformed. Who names the debates? Think about that. Even the name of the debate itself is steering you down a desired path. Because you have to defend from the outset. People on the side of gun control, more control, are instantly on the attack in the name of the debate itself. Why isn't it called the Second Amendment debate? If you called it the Second Amendment debate, they have to be on the defensive. Call it the gun control debate, the Second Amendment people are on the defensive. So, just little tricks of language. Beamer, thanks for joining us.
Report cards. And I think it's part of a strategy. And, you know, I recently did the transition from the FBI over to journalism, and I was wondering why the transition was so seamless, and it dawned on me that these are two professions that are very similar in the sense that you collect facts and then you explain them. Collect facts, explain them. Simple as that. When you look at politics, and this is what I'm afraid when you look at this primetime lineup, when you have the political model that's now infused on top of journalism, these folks start with the conclusion and then selectively pick facts in order to reach that conclusion. I think it does a disservice for the viewers.
Do you see the ultimate strategy here, the daily complaints and attacks against the FBI, as a plan for whatever happens on the line with Mueller, whatever more indictments come, that Trump and his media allies will be able to point and say, well, they're biased, they're corrupt, you can't believe it? Is that the end game?
Yeah, absolutely. And not just my view.
But see, why would it matter? Why would it matter? Brian Stelter's saying, okay, this is Brian Stelter, the strategist. He's been into the war room. He's war gamed this. He's put all the pieces on the table and he's put the puzzle together. He's saying that the strategy from Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham and Tucker Carlson is to just every day say that the Robert Mueller investigation is illegitimate. Obviously, that's based on nothing whatsoever. That's based on nothing whatsoever. And no activity by anybody at the FBI has been wrong in the last 2 years whatsoever. Andrew McCabe is a victim. Remember that. That has to be that's inherent in the premise itself. Because if there was any unethical activity by members of the FBI, then you would have to address it. Then the premise wouldn't make sense. But anyway, let's take Brian's premise that this is just a strategy to attack, baseless attacks, insults, the lot. And it's just an effort that should Robert Mueller come to the end of his investigation and charge somebody with something based on the fact that you have been bitching and complaining for the previous 18 months that nothing's happening, you are just going to bitch and complain more when he charges somebody. That's the grand strategy that Brian Stelter envisages is going on at Fox News. Because if he has evidence, if he has arguments, and if he has a case, all the bitching and moaning in the world isn't going to change it. So Brian Stelter putting his war game hat on, the best he can come up with is that the people over at Fox are bitching and moaning so that should Robert Mueller come up with a case at the end of the investigation, guess what? They can turn around and say, well, we've been bitching and moaning for 12 months, so it can't be right. Like it matters. Of course, the same works in reverse. Just say you're part of a network that has been saying that the Russia collusion is absolute fact, that Robert Mueller is doing God's work, and that Donald Trump and his associates are corrupt beyond Pol Pot level. Just say you've been pushing that barrow for the last 12 months, you get to the end of the Mueller investigation, and you don't get the outcome you want. What are you going to do? Is that your strategy? Then you can turn around and say, of course, now Robert Mueller has missed something. This is a corrupt investigation. This is obstruction of justice. It works both ways. Neither, I don't think, would classify as a strategy, really, if I'm being honest. If your strategy is to bitch and moan for the duration of the investigation, regardless of which side you're bitching and moaning from, just so that in the event of a outcome which you don't like coming to pass, you can bitch and moan a little bit more, then that's not a strategy. That's called pissing into the wind. Keep your mouth closed.
But a lot of my former colleagues who I would talk to, we'd sit there and watch. And, a lot of these, if you think about law enforcement, which is, mostly right of center, a lot of folks politically, they would sit there perplexed and say, here is the network that we watch. Here is the party, quote unquote, of law enforcement that's now attacking the FBI. And they're trying to make sense of it. And I think the conclusion was, kind of the consensus is, this is an attempt to soften the ground, to discredit Bob Mueller and his people and the men and women of the FBI, so that if something does come down the line and, show some type of malfeasance, that they can look back and say, aha, we told you all along that these folks can't be trusted. And so I think it's really concerning.
So you're saying that there are folks still at the FBI that have to explain this to their relatives, right? That have to say, here's why they're attacking us on television.
Those poor people at the FBI. Poor Andrew McCabe had to go home that evening when he was let go by his own department, the FBI. He had to explain to his wife and kids that, yes, I'm afraid the people over at Fox News have won. I have been bested. Their shameless, baseless attacks on my character have resulted in an unfair firing. Thanks to Donald Trump's tweets, which was in Andrew McCabe's statement when he was let go too. Blame Donald Trump's tweets. Yep. So yeah, just softening the ground, chumming the waters, just in case we unearth some kind of unethical behavior from the FBI again in the future. That's the only reason they're talking about it.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, there were some out there who were saying, well, we're just talking about leadership. We're not talking about the people. Whether you're an FBI agent or analyst at FBI headquarters, maybe you're down in Salt Lake doing an inspection, moving up in the chain, or you're out in the field, you are impacted by this. This impacts everyone, these political attacks. And I think at the end of the day, because the FBI...
Gee, I don't know. I reckon if you took a straw poll of your rank and file FBI agent, I would say that a lot of them would say that the actions of the leadership of the FBI have negatively affected them. Perhaps, just perhaps, and this is just a working theory, perhaps a little more than people in the right-wing conspiracy media pointing out what the leadership has done. I don't know, what do you think? Is that a theory or what? Maybe James Comey authorizing and allowing the dismissal of the Hillary Clinton case before she was even interviewed, before the primary subject in the case itself was interviewed. Nothing to see here. And then that news getting out, maybe that negatively affected people in the FBI who were working on said case, perhaps. No. That's right-wing conspiracy talk. No, the real damage to the average rank-and-file, patriotic FBI agent is people like Sean Hannity pointing out the shortcomings of the leadership and how they're doing the wrong thing by the rank-and-file members of the FBI. That's the real shame here. Carry on, Brian.
is an organization that has to be believed. If this corrosive doubt continues to take hold and the American people really think the FBI can't be trusted, then I think it's dangerous for our country. And I'd just say one last thing, too. When we look at this dinner with Sean Hannity and the president, I don't fault the president. I don't fault a politician for looking and saying, okay, here's my orbit. And communication is an important part of that. So I'm going to try to co-opt, fringe media in order to help amplify my view. I don't fault the politician. I fault those who masquerade as journalists who,
Philly says, keep attacking free press as fake news until free press disappears. Yes, Philly, because that's freedom, brother. You're allowed to attack the press. If you want to live in a country where people aren't allowed to criticize their news sources, guess what? That ain't free press, mate. If you're not allowed, if it's evil and wrong to criticize the media, that's not freedom. Part of being part of the free press, my American brother, is being allowed to say that it's all bullshit and it's all fake and I don't like it. Sometimes in free countries, we have to deal with that sort of thing. It's called feedback. So when we put things out there and people don't like it, and point out where it's wrong and say that it's perhaps a lie, and we say, hey, that's fake, that's a lie, that's wrong, you can attack all day long if you want. That's the price of freedom. They don't have to like it. You don't have to like it. In countries where the press is not to be questioned, guess what? That's not a free press. Capiche?
Fortunately, I can't sympathize with this, to go to bed every night looking back, knowing that you spent your day as a shill for a politician and knowing you're going to get up tomorrow and do the same. I mean, it's got to be an incredibly icky feeling. I'm just saying that it does a disservice to the American people if, as long as that little cube is spinning in the bottom of the screen saying news, folks want news. And to provide opinion that's masquerading as news without providing the facts, I think is a disservice.
There you go. So, the FBI, the media, they're all just victims of Donald Trump's tweets. Donald Trump is so idiotic that he can just fool the entire population into believing that there's fake news out there. And that is anti-freedom, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing that the FBI leadership or people within it have done over the last couple of years or longer could be construed as anything but patriotic and above board. The firings and investigations into various aspects of the FBI have nothing to do with facts. In reality, everybody has just been manipulated and brainwashed by Fox News. Everybody. They have been hoarded into a corner where all they can think about is fake news and no facts, and it's just opinion and it's just vitriolic attacks and it's hurting the FBI just like it is the survivors of the recent school shooting. Ladies and gentlemen, that was
The Weekly Stelter.
fantastic stuff. Look forward to next week's Weekly Stelter, where I'm sure it'll get even better.